Now, previously we just discussed about the liquid mixtures. We have what we call miscible liquids, which are liquids that mix completely, resulting to formation of a uniform layer. And we gave an example of water and milk. When the two are brought together, they form a white color. There's no layer that remains. We also have ethanol and water. When the two are brought together, they just become remains colorless. There are no layers which are formed. Then we also talked about the immiscible liquids. When you put these liquids together and stir the mixture, you discover that even after you let the mixtures to stand still, they'll be able to separate and form the layers. A good example is we have paraffin and water from the experiment we did some time back. That the paraffin and water cannot dissolve or cannot mix completely. They form layers when they settle down. And therefore we refer to such as the immiscible liquids. Now, the method of separation of these particular mixtures normally depends on the type of mixture. Is it a solid mixture? Is it a solid liquid mixture? Are we dealing with a liquid mixture? Or is it a gas mixture? It all depends with which type of mixture it is. So that means that you cannot say that this particular method is used for separation. The question we shall ask you is which type of mixture it is. For example, insoluble solids can be separated by what you call decantation. Remember that in our first part of discussion, we talked about solute, solvent, and solution, where we said a solid that dissolves in a liquid is known as a solute. The liquid that dissolves a solid is known as a solvent. Then the resultant mixture of a solute, when it completely dissolves in a solvent, is known as a solution. And then we said that that particular relationship, solute plus solvent is equal to solution, relationship only applies to the solids which are soluble in water. But we have some which are insoluble in water. So when we have a mixture that contains an insoluble substance, then one way that we can be able to separate the two is use the decantation method. Then what does it mean, decantation? In this case, we let the mixture settle after some time. Then the solid will be able to rest at the bottom of the beaker. So the solid particles will collect at the bottom of the beaker after some time. Let's say if you have sand and water, you've picked some muddy water out there, you place this muddy water in a glass of water and then you let it to settle. The particles will be able to settle at the bottom and the clear water will be at the top. That is what we call decantation. Now, the insoluble solids can also be separated from the mixture through what we call filtration. If you do not let this mixture to settle and the particles be cut so that you can pour off the water, then you can filter this mixture. We take so many things. For example, tea. In the preparation of tea, we put the tea leaves or the tea bags. At the end of it all, we have to remove the tea bag from the tea, or we have to filter off the tea leaves from the tea. So we can be able to obtain that solid material from the mixture of solid and liquid through what we call filtration method. Now we are going to be looking at these particular methods in sections which we should be discussing about the methods of separations of the different substances. Then the insoluble solid which is known as a residue remains. The solid which remains is known as a residue, and then the liquid that passes through is known as the filtrate. In the process of filtration, after you have placed the mixture on the filter paper and the filter funnel, the solid that remains at the filter paper, that solid which is being removed, is known as the residue, while the liquid that passes through is the filtrate. That's filtration. If you have tea containing some tea leaves and then you filter, the tea leaves which are filtered off is the residue, and then the tea which is now ready for taking becomes the filtrate. Therefore, both substances in the mixture are obtained in one process. We can be able to obtain both the solid and the liquid from that particular mixture. Through filtration, we're able to obtain both the solid and the liquid. Now, this particular process of filtration is very useful. Why? Because it helps in the treatment of water for domestic use. We have a lot of water that normally we use in our homes. But this water we use in the homes normally must undergo some particular treatment measures. So this one normally happens when the process of filtration is first done, to remove all the solid particles out of the water before this water is treated, then allowed into the piping system for us to use. It's very common for filtration. And this is done on a large scale. You can't take the beakers and the filter funnels into your homes. How much time are you going to take to filter 100 liters that you're going to use for a day? It will be a very long time. So it must be a plant or an industry-based activity. Another method that can be used to separate insoluble solids from the liquid is what we call centrifugation. Centrifugation. Separating of an insoluble solid from a liquid. Centrifugation. What does it mean, centrifugation? This involves what you call spanning the mixture at a very high speed in a machine known as a centrifuge. Spanning, that means rotating this particular mixture at a very high speed in a machine known as the centrifuge. We shall be looking at this particular method in our separation methods that we shall be discussing in the future lessons. So we have centrifugation, we have decantation, and we have filtration as the methods we can be able to separate the insoluble solids. Now, during centrifugation, the solid particles collect at the bottom of the test tubes. In centrifugation, remember, we use what we call the test tubes, and therefore the separating from the liquid. When they settle at the bottom, that means they have been forced at a very high speed to settle at the bottom. And when they do so, it means they will have separated from the remaining liquid. So at the end of it all, you simply remove the test tube and pour off the liquid, and then you remain with the solid particle behind. By the way, the centrifuges are very common in our laboratories in the hospitals, especially if they want to find out the composition of blood. If you want to discover probably what particular components are inside the blood, you'll be able to carry out centrifugation, where your blood sample is picked, then placed in centrifuge, and then a particular speed fitted so that the revolutions can be able to flow. And then finally, you'll be able to discover what the problem is. From the mixture that we'll be collecting, you can be able to identify that. So centrifugation, as a process, we have the solid particles collecting at the bottom, and then the liquid separating from the two. So you can pour off the liquid, and then you are left with a solid inside the test tube. Now, this is very common in our medical laboratories. So basically, just a small portion of the different methods that you can be able to use for separating the different mixtures. And that means that in our next parts, we shall be looking at the actual practicals, which are going to be utilizing some of these particular highlighted methods that can be able to enable us to be able to obtain the different mixtures. So we shall be looking at the practicals based on the different methods which are used on separation of the different mixtures. Thank you very much for your time. And let's meet in the Google Classrooms. If you have any questions, reach out so we can be able to discuss. Otherwise, have a good day.